Electric State is a new sci-fi adventure movie that just came out on Netflix over this past weekend. This one is produced and directed by the Russo brothers. It stars Millie Bobbie Brown, Chris Pratt, Giancarlo Esposito. Stanley Tucci shows up in this movie, I think. There's some pretty talented voice actors here too. You know, it's a pretty solid cast, all things considered. The story is set in an alternate sci-fi version of the 90s, and in the 90s, robots have become outlawed. A troubled young woman in the midst of all this has to travel across the country to try to rescue her brother from a corrupt organization that is also hunting for her brother at the same time. Before I get started with any like actual analysis of the movie, like breaking down positives, negatives, all that, can we just stop for a second and acknowledge that this thing cost $320 million? $320 million. $320 million. Is that like as big a budget as like the Avengers Infinity Saga movies? Like I don't even know, but it feels like it's up there. $320 million. Like what the heck? Why did this movie cost $320 million? I find that shit mind-boggling. This is like ordering one sandwich via DoorDash from Subway, and then it turns out that it costs $45 for some reason. Bitch, all I asked for was a footlong. Footlong's like $12. Delivery fee's like $5 or something. How the fuck did we get to $45? I didn't even ask for that much. I've seen the movie, and no one can explain to me how and why the movie costs that much, why it needs to cost that much. At this point, I'm gonna chalk it up to money laundering and just let it go. I wasn't really excited to see this movie. I also know nothing about the source material, so take that with a grain of salt if you want to. Millie Bobbie Brown and Chris Pratt. Can we start with that? They're pretty solid in the movie overall. I think both of them are good in general. Like Millie Bobbie Brown is a pretty talented actress, and Chris Pratt, I think, is at the very least likable in most of the things that he's in. And they are not given great material to work with in this movie, but they're both trying. I can see the effort. It's the bare minimum, but they do show up. Also, the movie's not bad looking visually. Now, that sounds like a backhanded compliment, and trust me, it is, but it's at least something. Like, I think the movie is competently filmed. There are definitely some of that ugly, boring ass gray filter that they put into all their cinematography, but the CGI is mostly solid, and there are a few wides and a few moments here or there where I can say, you know what, that was a decently shot scene. That doesn't look half bad. I found myself saying that a lot throughout this movie. I can work with that instead of like, oh, this is good, but hey, this is the positive side. I'm trying to be positive here. For somebody that has not read the source material, I will say the robot designs are kind of interesting. I have no idea if this is how they're designed in the book or how they're meant to look like in the book. They feel like vintage 80s and 90s. Like, it honestly feels like a bunch of Hasbro inventions came to life. It was a good choice because I like how the robots look. All right, time to break down ChatGPT the movie. Guys, I just, as positive as I wanted to be, this one does not move the needle. It is the most generic, basic ass, formulaic ass version of a movie like this that you could possibly make. You have seen hundreds of thousands of other movies that take this premise, take this concept, and do it way better. You've seen way better movies with way more interesting characters, and that is one of the things I want to hone in on first, is that the characters are just not given justice. They're not really given a chance to thrive in this movie. There's very poor characterization with these people. Like, the movie does not take the time and does not give you enough reasons to make you feel like you can be invested in these people. I'm talking humans or robots. They just don't do enough. Like Chris Pratt, his character, like I said, the actor is trying. He's essentially Shaggy Doo Star-Lord in this movie. Like, he's essentially playing a version of Star-Lord that you have seen before, and you've seen him in way better movies do it better. Millie Bobbie Brown, her character is just kind of, there's nothing there. They don't really dive into her character the way that they should, and they have an entire runtime to do so. Feel almost nothing for her. You know almost nothing about her other than the fact that she really loves her brother. Like, that's the driving force of the entire movie, and I get it. Even that feels like they just gave it lip service and they didn't really develop it or flesh it the way they could, and that goes for all the characters in this movie. Giancarlo Esposito, his character feels completely wasted until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. The action sequences are kind of meh. Like, the action scenes are very weak in this movie. I don't think there's anything in them that stands out. It all just kind of feels like the most boring version of robot action that you could see. I think my bigger issue with the movie is that the movie tries its best to like tack on a message that was not made readily apparent throughout the entire movie. It's a sci-fi movie that has a lot of big, huge things to look at, but it doesn't have a lot to say, and that's kind of weird because the material here would suggest that there's a lot to say here. This is a movie that feels very surface level. It feels very lip service in regards to the thematic ideas presented here. It just does not do any of that in a way that makes you feel like the movie was actually about something. So when people call it more style than substance, I think that's what they're talking about. In the end, this is a perfunctory assembly line ass movie. It is is a paint by the numbers chat GPT sci-fi movie. If you told me that this script and this movie was created by AI, I low-key would kind of agree with you. Nothing else to really say about it. I'm probably gonna forget about it in a day. This one deserves the guilty pleasure rating of Smallville. Those are my thoughts on The Electric State. What is your favorite Russo brothers movie of all time? If you have one, put it in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. Stay tuned for more videos, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.